back, everyone, to the Tales of Agmar, which is a fresh take on both sci-fi and fantasy storytelling. I'm your host, Sinjin, and today we're going to be talking about the Terrivan species, as well as a character from the book whose name is Steve. He's a bartender, and he's a Terrivan, so it's going to line up pretty nicely. This species isn't terribly as big as the other ones, and they are a lot more solo whenever you see him in the book and everything, and so that's why we're also talking about Bartender Steve along with this, and we're going to branch into talking a little bit more about some more nuanced things as well as some more characters from the book. But before we carry on, I want to do a quick spiel about the Patreon again, since that is the main way that we would be getting any revenue for the podcast at this time, as I am trying really hard to not go ads all over the place on you guys. Hopefully y'all are okay with that and you like that. But currently, for all free and paid members of the Patreon, yes, you can go join the Patreon as a free member and still participate in a few things. There is a post to generate some ideas for a name for the Academy, and the Academy, that's the one in the Middle Kingdom, just so you know which one I'm talking about, is just called the Academy right now. And I'm hoping that you guys can have some good ideas and get me out of my weird naming conventions that keep starting with G, because I apparently have a thing for starting names off with G, and I need to get out of that. And so that's going to be open for a little bit after this cast. I might extend it a little bit. I'll put up a post on the Patreon so that y'all know. So once you listen to this video, go check out the Patreon and go see if that's still running. And if you have any ideas for that, please definitely contribute. Or you can even post them as a comment here, but the main voting is going to be done on the Patreon. Anyways, let's go talk about that Terrivan species now. The Terrivans as a species are very human-like in their general appearance, right? Like, they've got similar skin tones to humans, similar builds to humans. They usually tend to be on the taller side, though, when compared to humans, right? Like, kind of our height average is a few inches below 6 foot, if I'm remembering correctly. It's like 5 foot 6 inches is kind of what we'll go with for about like an average human. Terrivan, instead, their average is usually going to run about 7.5 feet tall. Sorry, not 7.5 feet, 6.5 feet tall. Wow, apparently I'm really making tall things here. Anyways, 6.5 feet tall is about the average for Terrivans. Of course, you're going to have shorter ones and you're going to have taller ones, just like us. Now, the main places that the Terrivans live in is the northern and the southern reaches of Agmar. So those ice caps up there, right? And because of that, right, they're going to be more adept to the cold. They are also organized into tribes, however, and I will touch a little bit better on that in a second after we're done just carving out a basic Terrivan. They have 4 arms. So if you remember me talking about in the intro video, I mentioned that Steve has 4 arms and that he, as a bartender, is able to use those 4 arms to his advantage. All Terrivan are very dexterous with their 4 arms, and so they can always, dual wield 2-handed weapons, or they can quad wield single-handed weapons, right? And that tends to them always having like a very muscular like build, right? Most Terrivan, regardless of how they're going, are going to be muscular, just because they've got 2 extra arms. It's also just a thing in Terrivan culture to be more muscular, and so generally their species is gonna tend more to the buff side. They're also super jovial and very sociable when found out, and so that's why, for instance, Bartender Steve runs a bar, right? And that bar is called Steve's Place, by the way. But anyways, focusing back here, sometimes occasionally some will leave their clans to live amongst the other denizens of Agmar, right? Unlike most species on Agmar, they are not that concerned with mixing in with other species and opening up establishments, running businesses, kind of similar to how the Forgeborn run businesses. And so usually Terrivan and Forgeborn get along quite well. Aurelians also get along quite well with Terrivan. Generally, most humans do as individuals. Human governments, so for instance, like the Theocracy and Middle Kingdom, kind of have a harder time because they are more geared towards protecting their citizens from the other, big superpower on Agmar, instead of trying to make more interspecies connections. Though you'll still find some Terrivan in the Middle Kingdom because they have family that is like a Gearblade. And so occasionally Terrivan make the journey all the way over to become a Gearblade, or their family is just on Middle Kingdom turf, and right, they get discovered that they have an affinity for magic and become a Gearblade that way. Now, to talk about that clan system, it's not like the Aurelians, where there's like a tighter knit group that could grow really big and would fight one another. Instead, the Terrivan are usually docile. They can definitely fight if they're provoked, right? They've got no shortages of being able to throw you down if you disrupt whatever peaceful life they're living. But generally, they're more for chatting, talking, making money, and basically becoming friends with everyone. Usually when you first meet a Terrivan, their objective for you is to become your friend. It is not to rob or steal from you or anything. So that's always nice. They also make quite good bodyguards in that regard as well, because if you just get pretty friendly with one, they'll follow you around and protect you from anyone that tries to hurt you. So benefits there. They are usually, of course, since they are in those colder regions, most of the time they're in those like thick animal skins, protecting them from wind, ice, rain, snow, all that jazz, right? Versus when they leave those areas, right, then instead of them being in winter outfits, they're normally more in like summer outfits, even if it is kind of cold, because they just produce a lot of body heat naturally. One last thing that I need to talk about these Terrivan as a species real quick before we continue is that they do ride giant wolves. I apparently have not named them either, so I will either release something on the... I just really have to go find their name mainly, but they are named. They are quite large wolves. You know, they got to carry a couple 100-pound person with 4 arms, and sometimes combat, sometimes not. They use them a lot as pack animals too out there, and that is going to sum up the Terrivan as a species in general. So next we're going to bounce over to Bartender Steve, kind of who he is and what he does and why he's important in the book. Okay, so for Bartender Steve, first we're going to have to place ourselves where Bartender Steve is in the book. He's going to roll up about the middle part of the book, maybe a little bit closer to like beginning of the middle section of the book. And it's going to be Gander that runs into him first. And just for a little bit more about how like what's going on in the book, I talk about a lot on the Patreon through like little updates. And if you guys want something else aside from the Patreon, like definitely let me know if a Discord would be better. I know some people will have like just started way back in like the later episodes, which is good though, because you're going to want to follow through these in episodic order. But definitely let me know if you're something where it's like, hey, like I think it'd be better if you did updates on the Discord instead of on the Patreon, and just left the Patreon for what's running on the Patreon right now, aside from book updates, because book updates would then move to the Discord in this case. Then definitely just let me know. Or if there's some other platform that you guys use more often, definitely let me know. I'm just using what I have experience in and what makes it easier for me right now, since I don't have tons of time. But anyways, back to talking about the book. We've got Gander, he's the main character. And then Princess Kandra is like a second main character. And so mainly the book flips between their two perspectives, except sort of like my third main character, which is Aster, who is Gander's love interest. So more often than not, it's almost like these two different flavors of books that are getting blended together, right? Where I have, well, aside from the fact that I have things like jumping around different characters' view, right? I basically have one book, in quotation marks, right, that jumps between Gander and Aster's view whenever the focus is on them. And then when it jumps over to the Middle Kingdom, then, or over to Kandra and her perspective, which obviously starts in the Middle Kingdom, then it's really just her perspective. So we're going to bounce through 3 people's perspective across the book. That's kind of why this big draft right now is taking a minute, is just because I've got to work all that out, make sure everyone has their own voice, and so that it's sounding good as we're going through, and that it stays consistent. So anyways, back talking about Bartender Steve. So he lives at the port city of Nual on the island called Consiare's Haven. Now, Consiare's Haven is the only free place, I'm making quotation marks with my hand, on Agmar. And what I mean by that is it doesn't have a government, right? Or it doesn't have ties to any governments. Instead, there might be some smaller governments with city governors that are actually appointed by the citizenry, and those governors just try to make sure that the city survives. So it opens up really nicely. The Port Save New Isle, for instance, is a free port, and so you will occasionally find groups of all kinds of species there. You'll also find squads of Middle Kingdom and Theocracy soldiers there. Concierge Haven kind of has like a unspoken rule where you keep the fight out of Concierge Haven, and so more often than not, if military ships are stopping by, they are paying exuberant fees to restock on supplies, as well as to let their soldiers aboard, or let their soldiers on shore, and that makes for some great business for the locals. And you also sometimes get high-ranking individuals from other places coming over and having like a vacation over on Concierge Haven. Now, higher government officials usually don't show up there just because they would be targets of the other side, but it makes for this interesting thing where like the middle crust of all of Agmar kind of blends in here and contributes with one another, or not contributes, like talks with one another, swaps stories, trades information, resources, tools, etc., etc. Now, anyways, Steve's place, as I said before, is Steve's basically bar and inn. So at this bar and inn, he doesn't sell standard drinks that you'd find at like a bar. Instead, he makes his own custom, usually virgin cocktails, just because Steve doesn't really like dealing with drunk customers. He did a long time ago, and they just destroyed a lot of his stuff, caused a lot of fights, and as I mentioned before, usually Terrivan tried to stay away from all of that. And so instead, he's really started coming up with these fantastic cocktails that usually fruit-based, sometimes some root-based ones, right? And so kind of leans more into like what we would have as a soda bar today, except I would argue that it's a lot more exciting than a soda bar, at least in my head it is. One day I'll actually like mix some of these drinks that I've mixed together and taste them and see if they're actually that good, but for right now, they're really good, all right? And his slogan is, or his like the kind of like thing around his place is that only really refined people come and eat, drink, and play at Steve's place, and that's a trademark that's pending right now for Steve in Tales of Agmar. Anyways, while Steve is using his forearms, he's usually prepping food, cooking said food, as well as serving various drinks and finished food items across the room. And he usually stays up on the bar, right? So like it's like a sushi bar. Also, if you're a sushi fanatic, yeah, Steve makes sushi and he does it pretty darn good too. But he's usually prepping on that bar, and so if you come sit at the bar, then you would see Steve. And in a little bit, I'll do like this scene with Bartender Steve that you can sort of imagine yourself in. And definitely let me know if you guys like that scene as well. That's coming up. But anyways, to finish topping Steve off, for an unknown reason, he exclusively employs Aurelians as waitresses and hostesses for like, you know, welcoming people into the bar and serving them drinks and food. Other people have gotten their jobs too, but he employs like a disproportionately large amount of Aurelians in those roles. And his place is also kind of big too. So aside from it being kind of like that bar and inn atmosphere, you gotta like kind of widen that just a little bit bigger, because he does serve a lot of people every single night. And then he's got quite a few rooms upstairs, and so obviously he's got cleaning crews that clean those out, do sheets and all that jazz. Anyways, now we're gonna jump over to that scene with Bartender Steve. And so before we get into this, same thing kind of did last week with the gist. I'm gonna ask you to close your eyes. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. Focus on the road and don't get any crashes, all that good stuff. Now, okay. We're going to start our journey on the cobbled streets of Concierge Haven. All right, so we're going to do some prep here. You're on a cobblestone street. It's raining outside. All right, so don't forget the rain, that nice little drizzle. those great smells, right? Freshly washed earth. And you've got on a weathered cloak. It's treated, it's waterproof. So it's not soaking to the bones, but there's a slight chill, right? So you kind of want to find some shelter inside. Up ahead, you see Steve's place. The bright light coming from a window, coming from the inside, right? Taking a few more hurried steps, you make it to the door. And once you open that door, that wisp of hot air comes out, helps to fight back that chill, and a young Aurelian lady welcomes you to the fine establishment of Steve's place. And while you can see that many of the tables are already filled, and it's already quite packed tonight, she has already decided to take your party of one up to the bar where Steve is, right? So you're going to get a front row seat at seeing Steve in action. And she encourages you to buy something good to eat while she preps a room for you upstairs. Right? And as you continue to sit there, you see this four-armed, very tall, about 6 foot tall, maybe a little bit taller than 6 foot tall, dark-skinned individual. And he is just going away at it, right? In one pan, he's frying some eggs. Another hand, he's got drinks that he's pouring across glasses that he's steadying with a third hand. And his fourth hand is actually expertly chopping up a steak nearby, right? As he finishes this, he's organizing platters, putting them out, throwing them up on a bar, and dishing those out to further people. He eventually comes up to you and asks, "Hey, what do you want to eat tonight? I've got all kinds of things on the menu." And once he says that, he comes and he pulls up the sheet of paper, slides it towards you. "Feel free to take a look. I will come back to you when you're ready." As you look across this menu, you see various bits of cuisine from across Agmar. Some different raw fish, cooked fish. See some pig and some cow dishes. But you see some fantastic drinks on the back that sound exquisite. You've never heard of them before. And they're a blend of different fruits, some vegetables even, as well as some very interesting berries that you can assume only come from the Aurelian Strait. And as you're going through, you've been sitting here for maybe 3-4 minutes. Steve comes back. "Hey, have you made a decision?" You let him know, no, I haven't made a decision. Your menu is massive. I'm not sure where to start. So he turns to the back and he points down at this drink where the basis is blueberries. He calls it bumble juice. He says, that one right there is a favorite, bumble juice. It's a little sparkly, a little bit of a zip to it, but it's fantastic. Goes down nicely, and I can pair you up with some cubed steak. How does that sound? Easily swayed by his convincing demeanor, you order what you will find out later to be some of the most expensive dishes on Steve's menu. But as he's cooking your cube steak, you see that he's prepping this blue juice. He squishes up a few of these sort of blueberry looking fruits, but they're a lot firmer. And so as he's grinding those down into a paste, he then adds some water, grinds that. He's got this little slosh going. He dumps that into a cup, proceeds to add in a few other different juices from across his selection in the back, and you can see it starts to fizzle. And then he takes this sharp-ended, multi-knife looking object, puts it in there, and runs it around real quick, using his wrist to help blend up and combine any remaining ingredients until he's got this smooth, slightly thick drink. He pours that down into a cup ever so perfectly, and then goes up and puts this nice glass in front of you. I drink that up while I go and I finish this steak for you. You can see that your steak's been seasoned. It's been sitting on the counter while he had finished up the rest of the drink, and now he's about to throw that down on a platter. And you take a quick sip of this drink, and it hits you, just as Steve promised. It's a little tangy, a little bubbly, kind of zips down there, down the back of your throat, but it feels like perfection. So as you take a few more swigs, Steve goes and he sets this in front of you. And he says, "Have a good time, mate. I'll see you around. And someone will be with you soon for a room. And they'll also collect the payment for your meal. Have a good night." With that, he leaves to go attend to another customer that just showed up. And that is where we're going to end the scene for Steve's place. I'm not going to go too much more crazy. That is going to be similar to a scene that Gander experiences inside the book, so definitely stay tuned for that. And thanks again so much for coming around. Once again, this has been Tales of Agmar, and I will see you guys around next time.